Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview and prediction for Richard Commey versus Jackson Marinez. This fight goes down on February the 13th. And it is on the undercard of Joe Smith Jr. versus Maxim Vlasov, so a pretty good chief support to a really good main event in my opinion. And yeah, this lightweight fight is fairly interesting in my opinion, and I certainly envisage this one being relatively competitive, and I can see both guys winning this fight. I see realistic ways both guys can win. Of course, we are more familiar with Richard Commey. Of course, he was the former IBF lightweight champion. He is tried and tested, and we've got a good idea of where he stands in the lightweight division. However, Jackson Marinez really is still an unknown quantity in my opinion. He basically came on the scene in that robbery loss to Rolando Romero, where he outboxed Romero but got jobbed on the scorecards. But apart from that, we've really got no idea how good Jackson Marinez is. Although he won that fight in my opinion, and won it clearly, you know, we have to consider Rolando Romero is extremely raw and, in my opinion, not a high-level prospect. So maybe Rolando Romero kind of flattered Jackson Marinez in that fight. But nevertheless, let's break down the tail of the tape ever so quickly, and then we'll move on to what I believe each guy should do, and then who I'm picking to win this fight. So anyway, let's get into the tail of the tape. We shall start with Richard Commey. He has a record of 29 wins, 3 defeats, 0 draws, 26 of those 29 wins coming by way of knockout. Jackson Marinez has a record of 19 wins, 1 defeat, 0 draws, 7 of his 19 wins coming by way of knockout. Safe to assume Richard Commey is the much bigger puncher in this fight. Richard Commey is listed as 5'8" with a 71-inch reach, whereas Jackson Marinez is listed as 5'10" with a 69.5-inch reach. So Jackson Marinez does have a height advantage of 2 inches, but, you know, Richard Commey has a reach advantage of 1.5 inches. Both of these guys actually are pretty big lightweights. Will Richard Commey's reach advantage be a factor in this fight? Potentially, in my opinion, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Richard Commey is 33 years old, whereas Jackson Marinez is 30 years old. You know, Richard Commey obviously more experienced, he's been around longer, fought better competition, but the guy has had hard fights, so despite him being more experienced, maybe Jackson Marinez is the fresher of the two. Well, theoretically he is. Whether the experience tells or Jackson Marinez's freshness tells, we'll see on fight night. And both of these guys are orthodox fighters. So yeah, that is the tail of the tape ever so briefly. Now let's get into the actual fight itself. For me, obviously Jackson Marinez naturally is a boxer. He likes to stick and move, he carries that left hand low, and he'll like to throw that jab from his waist and basically try and keep you at arm's length, and he'll essentially make you take the lead and chase the fight. As we saw against Rolando Romero, he did a pretty good job of evading Romero's right hand, you know, stepping away from that punch, which wasn't hard because Romero is extremely telegraphed, but in that fight he boxed effectively. And, you know, I'm assuming that he's going to do the same thing in this fight, and that's what I believe he should do. I don't really believe it suits his best interest to sit there and trade with Richard Commey. I know Commey got knocked out in his last fight by Teofimo Lopez, but Commey's got a relatively good chin, and Marinez not the biggest puncher in the world, so if I was Marinez, I would keep the exchanges to a minimum, try and make this a low output fight, and basically try and win rounds based off that jab. Obviously, you know, he needs to be a bit offensive at times, but just choose his moments wisely in regards to when to do that, you know? He needs to pick the moments when Commey isn't really set to punch or exchange with Marinez. And yeah, I think Marinez's approach in this fight needs to be safety first behind the jab, and he needs to utilise those quick legs of his because he moves around the ring quite nicely. Don't get me wrong, he's not no Pernell Whitaker, but he does have quick feet, quick reactions, pretty quick hands, and he's athletically gifted. You know, sometimes he'll throw himself off balance, and he is a little languid in his style, a little bit clumsy at times. And he certainly needs to minimise those moments in this fight with Richard Commey because I think Commey naturally can make him pay for those mistakes, unlike Rolando Romero. So yeah, for me, Marinez needs to really use his style, box behind the jab, and basically try and make Richard Commey chase the fight. Essentially, that's how I believe Marinez should approach this one. As for Richard Commey, obviously he's going to want to test that chin of Jackson Marinez. There was a couple of times when Rolando Romero touched him. Marinez, I wouldn't say he was hurt, but he certainly felt those shots, and they were telegraphed shots by Romero, easy to see coming, and he still felt those shots. So you're looking for Richard Commey to try and strike early and put a dent in Marinez, try and dent his confidence, make him realise that I'm no Rolando Romero, this is a different level. And, one interesting thing about Marinez in his style is the low left hand. He'll throw the jab up from his waist kind of thing, carries that left very low. And as we know, Commey's got a longer reach advantage. He's got longer arms, according to the tail of the tape anyway. So I think Richard Commey, obviously he needs to chase this fight. He needs to apply pressure more than likely. But on the front foot, look for that counter right hand. Commey's best punch, in my opinion, is that straight right. And he needs to utilise that shot while moving forwards as Jackson Marinez is backpedaling. Either counter him while you're moving on the front foot, or try and catch him in those moments when he'll back up in straight lines with his hands low and kind of try and jump in with that straight right hand. Because Marinez, like I say, he's got a low left hand, but also he's got a habit of backing up in straight lines. Once again, Rolando Romero really couldn't expose that. I think Richard Commey's got more ability to expose that in this fight in those moments. So, Richard Commey needs to be looking for that straight right hand in this fight, and he needs to be willing to try and counter. Also, when Marinez is stationary or on the ropes in the corner, etc., or even just standing with Commey, again, needs to work that body. Primarily, Marinez is a mover, and the best way to slow a mover's legs down, obviously, is body work. Commey works the body relatively effectively. He's fairly good on the inside for a big lightweight. Nice hooks to the body, uppercuts to the body, etc. In the moments where Marinez is stationary, don't just headhunt against him, because he's got quite a good head movement, Marinez. He's kind of hard to nail clean. So try and work that body when Marinez is stationary. Slow down the movement, slow down the reaction times, and as the fight wears on, maybe the headshots will start to come into play. And again, Richard Commey coming forwards, utilise that jab. Sometimes Commey's got a habit of abandoning the jab, but when he throws it, it's a pretty good shot, pretty straight, pretty hard. So again, in this fight, he needs to be consistent with that jab in order to back up Marinez to where he wants him, in order to close the distance. And also, while you're jabbing a guy who's moving backwards constantly, it's a good way for him not really to be set to counter as well. So the jab from Richard Commey on the front foot, again, is another important punch in his arsenal in this fight. So for me, Commey obviously has to apply pressure, but he needs to look out for that low left hand of Marinez and try and exploit that as much as possible. He needs to try and work the body and don't negate the jab. But yeah, all in all, I see this one as a close fight. Commey's been out of a ring for quite some time after a bad loss, but he is proven that to a certain extent. But ultimately, we don't really know what he's going to be like when he returns to the ring. And Jackson Marinez, he got a robbery defeat to Rolando Romero, but again, Rolando Romero is really not anything special. So can we really read too much into that fight? I'm not entirely sure. I think Jackson Marinez at this stage is highly unproven, and while Richard Commey has his faults as a fighter, he is kind of basic, rudimentary, not the quickest guy in the world, fights in patterns, etc. While he's not the best fighter in the world, he is proven at a certain level, and I think he can actually deal with Jackson Marinez in this fight. I've actually seen a lot of people picking Marinez to win this fight, and I can see why. I really can, stylistically, but I'm actually going to go with a Richard Commey win in this fight. Not entirely sure in what manner, to be honest with you. This is only a 10-round fight, so it kind of minimises the chances for a knockout. But I'm going to go with Richard Commey to win this fight, but I'm not setting on how he wins, whether it be by knockout or points. I've got Richard Commey. But anyway, share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Del Boy. Peace.